morning to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Hello. Okay, it's better. So, as Bruno said, I will present here a part of the research that we are developing together with the Oswaldo Cruz Foundation. This is the books that is the result of the first part of this research. You can download the books for free. There are versions in English, in Spanish, and in Portuguese. So I strongly recommend you that you access the research. There's a lot of researchers from Oswaldo Cruz Foundation, from University of Rio de Janeiro, and also from Unicamp that approached several subjects related with the health, the industrial and technological policy for the health sector, and also for the health policies in Brazil and in the world. So what I will try to bring to discussion here is the main topics that I will try to discuss with you today is, first of all, bring to the discussion how the innovation process, why it can potentially bring enormous benefits to society, can also result in great inequalities in terms of access to its results. And obviously, the health sector is one of the main sectors where this issue arises most clearly. Perhaps it's one of the sectors where it was most visible that the innovation process can be disconnected from a development policy aimed at the well-being of society, as how we could see during the pandemic. Second, I would like to highlight that given the way in which the innovation process has changed in recent years, the barriers encountered by countries in the global south to capture the positive effect of this process are increasing. And once again, the pharma sector, the biotechnological sector, is a clear example of these barriers. Third, I would like to highlight how the concept of financialization can be an element that helps us to understand more clearly both the process of reorganization of the innovative activities of large corporations, but also the difficulties that developing countries face to foster its industrial and technological capabilities and to offer better health products and services for its population. And finally, I will try to show through the analysis of the Chinese case how it's possible, or how try to overcome these difficulties, stressing the idea that this requires a long-term, broad and articulate set of industrial, technological, regulatory and financial policies. I will start my presentation with the conceptual framework. For those that are not very familiarized with the idea of financialization, I will just put some brief ideas here. After in the Q&A session, we can discuss more. But the idea here is that you have an in-depth analysis of the limits and possibilities of social, productive, and technological development in developing countries. We need to better understand the process of global pharma and biotech companies and how they are changing the way that they create and capture value in the world. And the point here is that financialization is a key element to understand this process. Besides, of course, all the knowledge that we have in terms of supported by the evolutionary economics and other industrial organization areas. So I will, first of all, define what I understand as financialization. I will put here the idea that was developed by a professor here, Professor José Carlos Braga, that defines financialization como a systemic pattern of wealth that establishes new ways of defining, managing, and realizing wealth in capitalism, affecting the decision of all major economic actors, and it's associated with the dissemination of certain wealth management strategies by all relevant agents of the capitalism system. So I will put here an analytical scheme for those that are more know a little bit more about the discussion of financialization. It's possible to see that I try to organize here the idea that in general, the economic literature has placed emphasis mainly on the micro financial level that is in the left side of the slide, and also to the micro level that is in the right side. Less attention has been given to what I call here mesostructural level. So we have the key concepts and each dimension. After how the important thing here is to understand how financialization affects developing countries. So in the second line, we have the impacts, the way, the channel of transmission, how this concept affects developing countries, and finally, how, summing up all these three dimensions, how it creates a very difficult scenario to the technological and social upgrading. So looking for the macro financial level, the discussion is related to the idea of subordinated financialization that is related that countries in the peripheral world don't have a currency that is key in the world international system. So in this currency hierarchy, they suffer a lot of external vulnerability. And it is, and the impacts over the macroeconomic policies, it's related to high interest rate, exchange rate vulnerability, and constraints on the autonomy of macroeconomic policy making, since this all the developing countries, except China, have in certain way open his financial system in the period of globalization. Turning to the micro level, the discussion is related to the idea of shareholder value maximization. Authors like Bill Lazonick emphasize the idea of that this shareholder value maximization increase the investments in financial assets by companies, foster dividend distribution and share buybacks, and by this way, as this system of governance is copied by companies in the developing world, the terms in terms of preference for less risk investments, shortening of the planning horizon of firms in developing countries, and it turns in reducing incentives for investment in innovation. So this is the most common aspect of the discussion on financialization. But also, and this is the point that I would like to stress here, there is this mesostructural level. The mesostructural dimensions emphasize the elements that affect the condition of global competition. So not only one individual firm or company, not the macro level, but the condition of competition in the global value chains, the way that global companies organize and capture value in the innovation system. So this is the idea that I try to develop. So the main point that the literature in this mesostructural level emphasizes the idea that the financialization of strategies is very embraced by transnational corporations that try to foster intangible asset capitalization to protect what some authors like Cecilia Recap call intellectual monopoly, and by this way control global value chains and also a strong process of merger and acquisitions that creates a very concentrated market. So this changes the structural condition of global competition. This is the main idea that the mesostructure level. It raises a lot the barriers to entry in the high technology sectors, like the biopharma sector, and also creates this idea of monopolization of knowledge. So summing up, if you put all these things together, it's very, very difficult to promote structural change, promote industrial policy, because there are a lot of constraints on industrial and technological policy, barriers to techno-productive and social upgrading. You need to really have a very powerful industrial policy, not only industrial policy, but a combination of policies to jump over this all these barriers. So this is the main idea. Well, so I would just try to clarify a little bit this idea of financialization. Because the literature on financialization often place financial investments or financial side of economy on one side and the productive and technological sphere on the other side, as if they were opposite sides and increasing one dimension necessarily reduce the other. But our concept says that not necessarily mean that the large global companies have put aside its productive and innovative activity and the monopoly of generated by the control of intangible assets since they start to have this more financialization strategy. It's possible to combine these two aspects. And so I bring this quotation of Braga that put emphasis on the idea that the accumulation of wealth in contemporary capitalism means having the capacity and the flexibility to generate and capture value in all spheres: financial, asset valuation, production, technology, innovation, and so on. So after this broad introduction in terms of conceptual framework, I will move to how this general idea can be seen on the strategies of big pharma. So I will stress here some ideas, and I will bring you to you, share with you some data that try to illustrate this aggressive shareholder value maximization strategy that was followed by these companies. For example, in the work of Lazonic and Tulum, and Fernandez and Clinch, they will put emphasis on this aspect, but also the idea that they don't put aside the efforts in terms of innovation. They have high capacity to invest in internal R&D, but also they try to capture the scientific and technological knowledge generated elsewhere and funded especially by the state. This is the topics that was stressed, for example, by Mazzucato, Claire et al., and so on. Third, the idea of market expansion and control over intangible assets, the idea of blocking competitors, try to foster intellectual monopoly that was stressed especially by Cecilia Recap, but also in this work of Duran and Milberg, Claude Serfati. There's a lot of authors that work in this stream. So finally, the idea that greater capital mobility and financialization reinforce capital concentration and centralization at global level. And of course, in the pharma and biotech sector, this is very clear, at least for me, and I will try to convince you. This is a graph that was produced by Fernandes and Clinch that analyzed 27 largest pharmaceutical corporations and tried to calculate the payout. Is the sum of share buybacks, dividend distribution in these 27 largest pharmaceutical corporations. So it's possible to see in this graph that payouts increased from 30 billion in 2000 to 146 billion in 2018. If we sum all the period, the accumulated value is 1,500 billion during all the period. But this is the idea. People could say, well, they have a lot of profits, a lot of money. They raise a lot of money in the financial market, distribute dividends for the shareholders. So probably they will not invest more anymore in R&D or in innovation, but it's not true. They make both at the same time. So it's possible to see that the payouts have raised during the period, but also the R&D expense in a very high rate. It's possible to see here. And also the importance of intangible assets. In 2000, the share of intangible asset in the total asset was about 15% in 2000. In 2018, it was about almost 50%. And most of this intangible asset is related with what we call goodwill. The goodwill is directly related with the process of merger and acquisition. So this is the idea of concentration and centralization of capital, but also the control over patents, over promising clinical trials, over knowledge in general. No? It is not only big companies buying big companies, but also it involves the strategy of acquire smaller, innovative enterprise. Basically because as investment in the health sector require high resources, not only in the development of the drugs, but also in the process of registration, the process to try to organize the regulation of innovations. So in general, small companies supported by government funding of scientific support and fostered by the process of capitalization of venture capital funds, even if they have the potential to develop relevant later stages of the innovative process, they ended up being acquired by big companies. Just to give a number in an analysis carried out by Claire et al., if you take the 356 drugs approved by FDA between 2010 and 2019, all of them were directly or indirectly funded by National Institute of Health. The total support was about 230 billion. This is the public support for this. But at the end of the day, these drugs was captured by large companies and sold for a very high prices. And this process of public support for the development of medicines have some difficulties to attend the population. This is what Mazzucato and Lazanik call a very difficult situation and balance between the risk and the reward nexus. So the final result is the idea of concentration in these very large companies in the health sector. This is the top 340 health companies in terms of R&D expenditures in the world. And it's possible to see that considering the R&D expenditures, the control over patents and trademarks, it's really, really very concentrated. Even considering these 340 biggest companies. The 20 largest companies, this is about 5.5% of companies account for almost 50% of R&D expenditures, 36% of patents, and 20% of trademarks. So this is the situation that turns for the peripheral countries, for developing countries, this represents huge barriers to incorporating innovation or advancing to more knowledge-intensive stages within the global pharmaceutical chain. So the conclusion is that it's extremely difficult to implement policies aimed at mastering the most knowledge-intensive segments of the global pharmaceutical industry in this new financialized environment, because we have this mesostructural level, but also we have the macro restrictions, and also for some companies, even local companies, they incorporate this idea of shareholder maximization and short-termism and so on. And of course, this new environment reinforces the vulnerability of the productive and technological structure of developing countries and make it more difficult for them to solve their population health problems. So the question is, can developing countries overcome these challenges? And then we will go on to the Chinese case, and also Philippe will talk a little bit about the Brazilian case to try to solve and go ahead within this very challenging environment. So with this very broad vision about the health, industrial, technological policy in China, it's important to say that before the period of reforms, the opening of the economy during the central planning period, the access to health was guaranteed by the healthcare system for rural and urban works in the rural area, in the communes, in the urban, in the cities. Basically, the support was related with position by the one-way system in the state-owned companies or in the public administration. So with this universal system, childhood mortality fell from 200 out of 1,000 in 1952 to 34 in 1982, and the life expectancy will increase from 35 years after the revolution to 8 years. But we know that the market reforms, despite generate strong economic growth, the high growth of GDP that started after the reforms, also resulted, especially during the 1980s and 1990s, in very high inequalities and difficulties in accessing health services for the population. In the rural area, from coverage that was around 9% at the end of the 1970s, this proportion reduced to just 5% at the end of 1980s. In the urban area, the coverage at the end of the 90s was 45%. So, of course, population was much more rich, more money, but the access to the health service was very difficult, and especially in this context of urbanization, rising chronic disease, that also has increased the cost of health services and at the same time increased the regional and disparities between rural and urban population. So in this context is that since of mid-90s, China started to try to solve these problems. The first they launched in 1998. They started to launch in a small scale as pilots in some cities before 1998. But in 1998 they launched a national policy that was called Urban Employee Basic Medical Insurance for formal urban employees. In 2002, they deployed the new rural cooperative medical system. And after, in 2007, the urban resident basic medical insurance. That was for people that were not formal, that not have formal employment in China. And in the second decade of 21st century, they accelerate to search universalization, and finally in 2016 they merge the two systems in one big medical insurance system. So I will just show the results of this process of unification of the Chinese Basic Health Program. Between 2016 and 2018, the rate of coverage jumped for something like 55% of population, and you know that the population in China is very huge, to almost 90% of the population. The number of people that was incorporated in the system of medical insurance was almost 600 million people in 2 years. It's a very huge number. And this was related with the launching in 2016 that also marks this idea of health is strategic for the Chinese government, is this plan that is called Health China 2030. So this plan signed the growing importance of health in China, long-term strategy, but also highlighted the importance of promoting endogenous innovation capacity. That was a very strong worry of China since 2006, but in the health sector, 2016 is the year that we can choose as a mark, as the moment where they try to organize these policies in terms of health policy, but also in terms of industrial and technological policy to the health sector. So they try to to get deeper, expand, deepen, and coordinate all the policies to promote health and the productive and technological structure to meet the population's needs. So what was the main policies in terms of this strategy? So how I already told you, since 2006, the biotech, pharma, and medical equipment was in the center of the policies, the industrial policy of China. For example, in the National Medium Long-Term Program for Science and Technology, in the Strategic and Emerging Industry in 2010, in the Made in China 2025, all of them in the selection of key strategic sector, they stressed the idea that the pharma, medical equipment, and biotech sector was the key. But actually, until the middle of the first decade of the 20th century, the position of China, despite all of this policy, was still as in a subordinated position in value chains. China was turned to be the most important exporter of API, active pharmaceutical ingredients, but basically that product that was related to scale, not so more not so knowledge intensive sectors, generic drugs, and so on. Just to give a number, in 2019, China accounted for 44% of total global API production in terms of volume, in terms of tons, but only 18% in terms of value. So this is the idea that China tried to advance in the chain and to foster the innovation capacity. They perceived that was important to have these more broad policies and more actions in a coordinated way. So here, this is the menu of action that they take, especially from 2015, 2015, 2015 and 2016. There are 6 dimensions that was combined. Okay, the first, the most traditional way to incentive innovation, that is the reduction, fiscal incentives, the reduction of corporate tax from 25% to 15%, that was implemented since 2008 during the crisis, the global financial crisis, but also they put the deduction of expense related to R&D, the amortization of equipment and projects from corporate income tax, and it was a normal tax from 100%, but from 2015 they implement the super deduction of 150%, after 175%, and after and finally 200%. This is the main idea of incentive. But also they mobilized a lot of regional incentive in some province, Jiangsu, in some technological parks, they offer infrastructure, subsidized space for laboratories and production, additional funds for R&D projects, additional subsidy for project that was approved for clinical trials, and for certification in international bodies such as FDA in the United States. So the regional incentive was very, very powerful. Third, regulation. They introduced a lot of global standards for clinical trials and drugs registration, and they uh, implemented procedures for clinical trial that was much more faster, especially for innovative medicines. Fourth, one of the most important instrument was government procurement. They launched also in 2016 the national volume-based procurement. That was the system that was used to compose the national reimbursable drug list that was related with that system of health insurance for the public sector. So it promoted a very strong price reduction for medicines. The literature say that the average of reduction was 50%, but in some specific case, it was 90%, for example. But also they try to modulate the idea of public procurement, incorporating in the NRDL more innovative drugs. So in this way, they could reduce the margin of generic drugs and put a higher margin for innovative drugs. So stimulating the process of innovation, of course, giving some kind of preference for national companies. Third, not third, five, financing. Loans by public banking system for investment, support for bond issuance, and sport credit and insurance. But also another important instrument was known as government guidance funds. This is venture funds established with input from central, provincial, or municipal government, general 20 to 30%, that also raise funds from other investors such as private equity and venture capital funds. And finally, instruments to promote the qualification of Roman investors, a lot of money for university in China. People that are here from China know that they put a lot of money in the university. 150,000 graduates a year in the area of life science, more than the United States. And the program 1,000 Talents that was implemented to bring back scientists, PhD students that was studying abroad or working abroad in the United States, in UK and Germany and so on. So this is the idea of broad range of instruments and also a coordinated process in several bodies of the Chinese government, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Industry and Technology, the Ministry of Information and Telecommunication, and finally, some results of this policy. This is the industrial R&D expenditure in pharma and biotech sectors comparing China with the United States. So it's possible to see that the expenditure was 1 billion, almost 2 billion in 2010. It raised to 11 billion in 2020. Comparing to the United States, it was just 4.5% of the expenditure of the United States. In 2020, it was 15%. So a huge increase in the expenditures. In the last year, 2023, China was responsible for 13% of the global R&D after United States. Here, some information about companies, Chinese companies that are included in the largest companies in terms of R&D spending, comparing 2013 and 2022. In 2013, China was in the position 12 in the ranking. The share of the Chinese companies was just 0.4%, 14 companies, and the R&D, the rate of R&D over sales, the intensity of innovation of R&D expenditure was just 2.8%, very low comparing to companies from the United States, Switzerland, or Japan. In 2022, the position of China was much better, not of course not so better than the global leaders, but there was 82 companies, 5.9 was the participation in the R&D expenditure. The R&D intensity was much higher, and the average expenditure also was much higher in the past. The number of new molecular entities passing by clinical trials in China. Also, we can see an increase, but not only an increase, but the share of national companies, Chinese pharma companies and Chinese biotech companies was more important from 2016 to 2020. This is the clinical trial, and after the clinical trial, they need to be approved. The approval is the end of the process. So, in terms of approval, also, just what they call innovative medicines, the share of Chinese companies is increasing. They are trying to compete more with the multinational companies. And finally, this comparison made by Kong et al. Comparing the top 20 global companies. I think that's a little bit difficult to see here, but they put here the number of clinical stage products, the pipeline of innovative drugs, and the yellow color is those that are related to new targets or new mechanisms of actions, innovative drugs, the yellow color. And the line is the percentage of innovative in the total pipeline. So it's possible to see that the companies, in general, they have a pipeline that more than 50% of the medicines are innovative. China have some companies that also have very important pipelines, but of course in a scale that is not comparable to American companies, and the number of innovative drugs is the rate of innovative drugs is lower than the United States. But we can see here some companies as Hungary Medicine or Yangtze River Pharma that are doing very well. They are developing some medicines in anti-cancer drugs and diabetes. So they are going very fast and doing very well. This is the same information, a comparison between Chinese companies and American companies. We can see here the R&D expenses and the sales, and it's possible also here see that in general, American companies, of course, they spend more money in terms of sales and R&D, but we have some companies here as Beijing, Innovent Biologics that are starting to to be at the same level of companies in the West. So going to the conclusion, is just to show that and stress some points of my presentation. The idea is that the financialization of companies does not mean they cease to innovate or concentrate their control over intangible assets. Quite the contrary, they spend a lot of money doing dividend distribution, doing buybacks, but also spend a lot of money in internal R&D and control the R&D via merger or an acquisition of small and startup firms. And this is possible just because they have this flexibility of finance capital. For the global south, the most important question is that it takes it put a necessity to take a lot of effort for developing countries to get up technological and productively, basically because large corporations have this strategy to concentrate strategic asset in leading companies and create significant barriers for companies in developing countries. And of course, the Chinese strategy demonstrates that R&D incentive is not alone is not sufficient. They must be combined with other instruments such as regulation, public procurement, financing. So even considering the Chinese case that I think that is very well succeeded strategy, the pipeline of Chinese companies still smaller, less diverse, and with a lower degree of incorporation of new action mechanism compared to the leading global companies. But of course, the progress of Chinese companies in the last 10 years is noteworthy. They have made important advances in areas previously dominated only by global companies, including oncology medicine, gene therapy, monoclonal antibodies. So they have, with this process, better condition to support the health policy of China that is related to this idea to offer universal coverage with good solution for all the population. So thank you, and I expect that you have some questions to provoke me after the Q&A section. Thank you. Se bem que tem isso aqui, viu?
So, hello everybody. My name is Philippe Kamya. I'm sorry here. Carlos Gadelha, who is the secretary, was invited to speak here. So I forgot to change the position here. So don't show him, please. I'm here in behalf of him. So thank you very much, Bruno, for the invitation. And also I would like to take Célio in the name of Bruno and Célio in the name of all the organizers and the colleagues here. Carlos Gadelha saying unfortunately he wasn't able to be here today because he's attending a meeting with the Minister of Health. So he asked me here to be here to speak in behalf of him. First of all, I would like to say that it's a great honor to be here because Unicamp is my alma mater. So I think it's really representative to me to be here and to talk. I was talking with Célio a few years ago. I was on the other side, now I'm here, so I'm really glad. Thank you for the invitation. Also, what I'm presenting here is also as shows the contribution of this school of thought, the Campinas School of Thought, in the public policy, and it's like what I'm trying to present here is the experience of the Brazilian industrial innovation policy in health, which is really related with the lessons that I and also Carlos Gadelha and a lot of other economists who also participate in this big project that was we had in the Fiocruz in the fuel that's happening now, but we have been working at Fiocruz in the last years to understand and update the industrial innovation policy in Brazil. So with this consideration, I will start the presentation. I'm really glad about the name of the presentation, Health Innovation Development, because this explains a bit. It's a synthesis of can explain the way that the industrial innovation policy in health in Brazil is being built. So I will start first with another consideration, because why to link health innovation development, as Célio has shown, health is one of the most dynamic industries in terms of innovation, and I think there's two main areas that is really dynamic in terms of innovation and productive, and to push further the frontier, the technology frontier. I think to me is to work with death and work with life. It's, ironically, is the defense industry, which works with the greatest arms and that destroy life, and also the work in the health industry that are trying to create that, to maintain life, to create new ways to extend the life of people. So I think one of the most dynamics, because when you have a expansion of the new revolution, industrial technological revolution, it's areas that are people start to looking how to develop innovations on that, because how to explore these new tech, the new possibilities of technologies to also to create or destroy life. So I think health is really related with innovation, and as Célio shown, it's evident when we look at the numbers. And also, I would like to explain why to relate with development. And I will start to quote Celso Furtado, which is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, economists of Brazil, and he defines development as a process of social change, where a growing number of human needs, either pre-existing or created by the change itself, the development process creates new demands, are satisfied through a structural change in the production system, which is generated by the introduction of technological innovations. So it's evident the relation with health, innovation, and development. So the question is, this process of structural change in the production systems generated by the introduction of technological innovations, are they really attending are they pursuing to attend to satisfy this growing number of human needs? I think this is the great question. And this is when I was working at Fiocruz with Carlos Gadelha, this is the most provocative question that he always asked to us. So what is the summary? What is the objective of industrial innovation policy? What should be the objective of development policies? So I think this is a thing that we have always to keep in mind when we are working with the public policy. It's just to push to stimulate more the introduction of more innovation in the productive system, or are we looking to solve the human needs? We are looking to satisfy these human needs. And also to reinforce this, my talk here, I will talk more specifically in Brazil. I think Célio has presented us important context of the global dynamics, not just in health industry, but especially that affects as well health industry, the financialization, the global competition. And I think just to before before to start a talk about Brazil, I think one of the things this Célio, that I have the advantage to talk after, so I could take some notes here. One thing striking that Célio shows us is this challenge now are updated about the financialization. There are even more restrictions to structural change. There are constraints on industrial innovation policies, are barriers to technological, techno-productive, and social upgrading that are being created by this new context of global competition. And how, and I talking with Bruno and Célio, they said that the most part of students here are from Global South. And I think from the Global South, the periphery perspective, their challenges we are facing are different. Because when Mazzucato and Lazonica are working with these problems of financialization, the problem is that how reconcile the structural the production system with the social needs, and how to reconcile how the innovation in the drugs in the health sector are being in drugs and equipments that are directed to solve the problems of health. But us from the Global South have a double problem, double challenge, because we have to still create and build this innovation and productive system. And building this without following the same errors that they fell. And China, I think, is one good example to. It's always good to look at China because how they are doing, how they're facing this challenge, and how they are trying to do it, trying to match with the social needs. So I think it was a great start for our talk today. And here in Brazil, in the 90s, we have the 1988, we had our constitution, and we defined that in the constitution that health is a right of all and a duty of the state, guaranteed through social economic policies. And also, we defined health here in Brazil as a state of complete physical, mental, social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease. This we can translate health when we see this definition, which is also the definition of WHO, the World Health Organization. Health is actually the well-being. So when you are looking for this quote of Celso Portado, the human needs to solve, to try to satisfy the human needs, we can use health as an equal term of it. So when we are trying to pursue health, we at Fiocruz and we at Ministry of Health, we say that health is development. Pursue health is pursue the development, and also pursue health is a vector to pursue not just social development, but also economic development, because health is a strong and really dynamic economic sector. So I will talk about the context of Brazilian universal health system, because when you are talking, so what's the vision of the Minister of Health? What's the vision of industrial innovation policy in health? That we are we're stimulating the industry, stimulating innovation, trying to strengthening the Brazilian public health system. So it's important to understand a bit about the context of the Brazilian health universal system, and also the vision that back this industrial innovation policy. So the Brazilian universal health system has three principles that I forgot the slide, but I explained, there is the principle of this is an universal health system, so everyone, include all of you, not just the Brazilian, everyone can be the health system is for everyone. So if anyone here has an injury, is feeling ill, feeling sick, can go to a public facility, of health facility here in Brazil, and will have your health care and needs attended. Also, it's an integral, complete health system. So it means respecting science and the scientific evidence. You should have access to all of it, not just the basic primary care or some just few things, but you can have just the from the surveillance system, the basic healthcare, even to the more complex procedures. And also is an equitable health system in terms of that it should look most for the most vulnerable first. And also this system has some guidelines. The three main of guidelines are this decentralization, the regionalization, and the social participation. And I would like to emphasize the social participation, that it first of all like create a strength support for the universal health system, but also the governance structure of the Brazilian universal health system with social participation, also with conference and in councils in every levels, in the federal, the states, and the municipalities, allows that the demands of the society be included in the decisions of how the Brazilian universal health system will be guided. So these social participations allows that social needs that Furtado has said appeared as problems to be solved by the federal and state and municipal level. And SUS has there is problems with the system, because I will not here like I say everything's perfect, but they have a lot of cases of success. I just quoted a few of them here, and one of the most striking is the national immunization policy that guarantee Brazil has one of the biggest list of free vaccines to the public, that everyone can be vaccinated. And also another striking success, the family health strategy, that is a strategy for primary health care that that follows the families in the locations there are in the locations they live. So in the 9th age, when they are created, we can see here the more these in the blue areas are greater than 50 and 50%, and we can see the coverage has increased a lot in this 13 years that is shown here. Also, there's another important success, like the reduction of infant mortality, the pharmaceutical assistance policy, the transplant policy. Almost every transplant in Brazil are made in the SUS. And also we have extensive coverage of emergency medical care services, and important and international case of success in the HIV policy, and psychiatric reform that try to abolish the, I don't know how to say it in English, but to try os manicômios, like the to try different, not like illness, and that. Sorry, I forgot the name in English, so I will jump in. And also in combating the tobacco use, that we used to say that the main policy to avoid cancer in Brazil was not the introduction of new medicines, but actually the promoting the reduce of tobacco use that reduce the cancer of I don't know how to say throat a lot in Brazil, and also like grease-feeding policies with the asiles is that we're trying to not like treat the, the people of psychiatry illness in asiles, but try to a different approach. So it's a lot of success, but also we have a important problems, important obstacles. When you see the comparative per capita expenditures in health in Brazil, we see besides that we have the boldness to be one of the few uh, developing countries in the world that we have the bold to choose to opt to try to create a public universal health system. When you look at the funding, we can see that the funding is not enough. We have a lot of problems to finance and to cover all the needs of the public uh, health system. And also, when you see Brazil, how uh, this uh, this finance is the participation of it, we can see that most part of the expenditure in health in Brazil, this is this one is the government expenditure, and this one is the families expenditures. And Brazil is one of the few is the only country in the world that public health system which the state expends less than 50%. It spend less than the families in the health expenditures. Also, we can see the problems of inequality in Brazil also reflects in the inequality in access in health. We can see here the public expenditure is about 45% of the expenditure in health, and the private prepayment that is is 30%. In the out of pocket is like 25, and when we see the out of pocket, we can see here that when you this is for the seals of incomes, the poorest population spend more than 60% of their income in medicines, where while in the 10 decile, the most rich expend less than 30%, and they expend more on prepayment healthcare schemes. So this is a huge challenge to how to overcome these obstacles. So what is the problem? We are trying to see we have great advantages. We increase the coverage, but the main question that remains: and did the productive and innovation structure, the productive innovation system, follow this increase in coverage? And how is the problem when this doesn't happen? We can give another example. Is like in the United States. There, the productive innovation system maybe is the most in health is the most innovative one, but did the social structure in health follow this increase in this growth of the productive innovation systems, and what the problem and when this mismatch occurs? So this is the main, I think, perspective that back the industrial innovation policy in health in Brazil, that is we call the health economic industrial complex. It's based on the it's a simple exam, but I think we can think a lot for, following this perspective. That is, the political, social, and ecological transformations aren't separate of the economic, technological, productivity, science, technological innovation transformations, which means the social structure are not separated from the economic structure. We try here in the academic, in the government, we try to separate things because we have become even more specialized. We just focus on one problem. But when we are talking about social transformation, we are talking also about one economics transformation that occur at the same way. So to deal with that, we developed in the Fiocruz the concept of the health economic industrial complex in the beginning of the 20s to deal with how to understand, how to investigate the dynamic of the productive and innovation system that backs the social and social structure of the health system. So we call that health economic industrial complex is the material basis behind the public health systems. So this means what? This means trying to understand what is the main activities that are related to provide this the health activities to the population. So we are talking here about some industrial activities like the chemical and biotech based industry, the pharmaceutical industry, vaccine industry, blood product industry, also the mechanical, electronic, and material based industries that are the mechanical equipment, the electronical and electronic equipment, prostheses, diagnostic devices, and all the inputs that are used in the health systems. All of this goes to the service providing activities, whereas the healthcare activities actually being provided to population. So we in a example, in a simple example, is when you go to a doctor, they use some equipment to see your blood pressure and also to listen your health. All of this is produced in one place, in one industry. And also, when they will try to do a diagnostic, you will probably will suggest to you to do a clinical exam, like a blood exam or some image exam. And this is produced in some place. And now with the information and technological revolution that we have been seeing in the past decades, we can say it's a fourth or third technological revolution. Doesn't matter, but what matters is that this is transforming all the activities in almost every sector, and this includes the health sector. So these information and connectivity activities, now when you see nowadays, they are invading and transforming the way that we provide health, like telemedicine, like the equipments that we can use smartwatch, and also like the managing activities in healthcare. They are transforming everywhere. So this is part of this big production and innovation systems that backs the health system, either being public or private. So when you talk about Brazil, these main activities accounts for 10% of the PIB, of the GDP. They employ almost 9 million people. If you think about direct and indirect jobs, we are talking about 15 million of jobs. When you look in this broad way to the participation in the national research, almost 1/3 of the national research is related with these activities that is supporting the health industries and the health activities. And this is a high potential to stimulate the economy because this is a key area for the fourth industrial revolution as well, which is transforming these information connecting activities, but in fact, every other activities. When you talk about like the vaccine of COVID-19 in Moderna and Pfizer and Moderna, they were of the most quickly developed vaccines in the history, and this was possible because the high throughput screening technologies that can, like artificial intelligence that can screen millions and billions of molecules in few seconds and try to understand which are the more potential to have a new discovery, a new drug. So this influence a lot the dynamic of innovation and dynamic of the realization of these services. And now we're moving a bit of to Brazil because I just said that we have been building a public health system universal public health system here since the beginning of the 90s. And then in the 90s, this occurred in a moment that I think everyone know here. The 90s was a moment of liberalization in the world. So here in Brazil was the same. So in this time we are opening, we are changing the trade policies. We are opening the Brazilian market. We are abolishing the industrial innovation policies here. So what happened? We have a big process of deindustrialization, which happened as well in health. So in the early 2000s, this is starting to be reversed with some national industrial policies that in Brazil, and also this new context of the trying to rebuild the industrial innovation policies allowed that in the Ministry of Health, this topic become more sensible. So Ministry of Health starts as well to implement some industrial innovation policies in health. First, creating some departments to stimulate the scientific and technological activities, but moving out after moving forward to also stimulate the production activities and the innovation activities, which is the creation of this SCTIE, the Science, Technological, Innovation department, and start to be created a lot of institutionalities within the Ministry of Health to try and implement these policies. And I will focus more on the recent policies, but just to have a context. These policies allowed the increase of the percentage in companies in Brazil that were using public policies. This graph, sorry, I couldn't have time to translate the title, but this is percentage of innovative companies that use government programs. We have here in the total of industry, here in the pharmaceutical industry, here in the medical equipment industry, in health. And we can see that this industrial innovation policies had some impacts because the percent of companies that were using these programs were higher than in comparison with the overall transformation industry. Here are some stylized facts about just the pharmaceutical industry. In the early 20s, there was only one national company among the 10 largest companies in the Brazilian pharmaceutical market. In 2017, 5 Brazilian pharmaceutical companies were among the 10 largest companies in the Brazilian pharmaceutical market. And after the pandemic, when you see the most recent data, the data of Anvisa, actually the biggest pharmaceutical company, which is not from a corporate group in Brazil nowadays, is Fiocruz, which is a public laboratory. So this is a consequence, of course, of the pandemic, but also of the industrial innovation policy that have been made. So we saw in this period a strong growth in the Brazilian pharmaceutical industry, with a growth in the physical production of almost 30% between 2002 and 2018. Despite the drop in the number of establishments, because we had here this movement that Célio was talking about, this concentration process, pulled from the financialization, the private equity funds, and also public funds that stimulate this concentration in the market. But what happened? Despite this strengthening of the pharmaceutical market, this happened especially in the generic segment. 14 national companies were responsible for 90% of the national production of generics. Sales of generics units grew 12 times between 2003 and 2016, reaching almost 30% of the total Brazilian pharmaceutical market. But the question that remained was were the companies able to move further, and they could like become more competitive, compete in the generic market, but could then move further to more dynamic activities to promote innovations. And was the main criticism of the industrial innovation policy in health. And this is true that the companies advanced, but could advance more. So here are some more in a macro level perspective. Between 2010 and 2021, we can see here the demand side, which we can relate with the strengthening of the public health system in Brazil. So the public health system has developed and has increased with the obstacles that I've said, but they could progress. So in 2010, 8% of the GDP were spent in health activities, and 2021 almost 10%, so an increase. The growth trajectory of the health expenditure exceed that observed in the rest of the economy by 11%, which means the growth in the expenditure in health sector was faster. Here, this striking graph that where the jobs were generated in Brazilian industry, in Brazilian economy. You can see here that cumulative variation of jobs in the health industry, in the health economical industrial complex, which combines the industry and service activities. The growth was 43% higher than the rest of the economy, which means that the development of the health system in Brazil also reflected in the growth of the jobs created in the health system. But the problem is that when you see the cumulative change in the value added in the health economic industrial complex, we see that the value added increased from 6.1 to 7.7 in relation to GDP. This growth exceeded the observed in the rest of the economy, but however, we have to emphasize that the difference in the expenditure 9.7 and the value added 7.7 in relation to GDP indicates that production didn't follow the growth in the demand. So where this difference went? When you see here the trade balance of the health economical industry in Brazil, we can see that there's a big demand leakage in Brazil. Like in 2023, this demand leak was like 20 billions of 20 billions US dollars for a year. Our trade deficit in the health sector, the health and economic industrial complex sector. The imports reached almost 22.3 billions of dollars. When you see here, where is the most important leak is when you see the APIs, we import more than 7 billions. We have 88% of dependency in the API sector. The dependence here is the import. The import under the demand and the national production plus the imports minus the export. But we import a lot of drugs, 5.2 billions. We have a strong import in medical device, other biotechs, like the most innovative drugs today is the genetic therapies, the monoclonal antibodies, and also vaccines. And when you see what happened in Brazil, we have developed an important pharmaceutical industry. So the dependence in finished drugs in medicines are almost 30%, but we import almost every APIs that we use here. And these from here Brazilians, they I think had read and seen a lot of these discussions in the pandemic. And also in the biotech base, which is the most dynamic sector in the industry of health today. So we have the dependency, important dependency on APIs and on the most dynamic sectors of health economic industrial complex. This when you see the health economic industrial complex trade balance by the technological intensity. We can see easily here is that the trade deficit in health is mainly in high or middle high tech imports. This makes sense because actually the products related to health are really complex and are really high tech or mid high tech products. So what this means, we have been, this demand leakage means that we have been loss of income, investment, and quality of jobs that we could have created more jobs, had more income. This increases our productive and technological dependence, and this, when you relate with this social and economic process, this means that we are creating a health vulnerability because we are increasingly being demanding high tech and high tech technologies, which we cannot produce here, that are essential to sustain and maintain our public health system. And this is become evident when you see the main products exported by Brazil. Here is the map of the main products exported in Brazil by each of Brazilian states. I don't know if you can see the image here, but when you see the images, is almost everything here are raw materials, commodities like meat, soybeans, and minerals. So what this means? Actually, the problem of these vulnerabilities in health, economic vulnerabilities, are the underdevelopment problem. The reproduction of underdevelopment in a context of complex economical, social, cultural, ecological heterogeneity translates in a model of predatory stagnation that does not promote economic growth, destroy our biodiversity, and deepens our social inequalities, expanding our technological dependence and amplifying the global asymmetries that Célio has been showing to just show to us. So what the problem when you see is the underdevelopment. So it's how to overcome the underdevelopment to try to establish dynamic and dynamic production and innovation systems here in Brazil that actually can satisfy our growing human needs. So this reflects when you see the import penetration rate in the health economic industrial complex, that even with that successful policies, that one of the most successful industrial innovation policies implemented in Brazil were in the pharmaceutical industry, in the health economic industrial complex sector. But even with that policies, when you see the important penetration rate has escalated here in Brazil. In the start of the century, we imported almost 35% of our demand in health. But nowadays, especially after the pandemics, we import more than 50% of our needs are satisfied by imports. So why this reflects in health vulnerabilities? So I think COVID-19 was an striking example of for it and for a lot of different things, but for it is a striking example. Here is the distribution of productive and technological capabilities in global production of COVID-19 vaccines. Here in the left side, we see Moderna and Pfizer Biotech, which is the most innovative drugs, vaccines that were created. And in the right side, we see Oxford AstraZeneca and Sinovac Coronavac, which were more mature technologies. You can see here that the most innovative technologies were concentrated in a few places in the world. Is the developed countries, and also China, which is which are invading every activity right now. And in the right side, we see, when you see the more mature technology, we can see a more distributed pattern, but also that we can see there persist some empty place that they cannot reach these technologies. So this is reflected when you see the asymmetry in the population covered by the first dose of the vaccine. This in August of 2021, where we could produce, the world could produce a lot of vaccines, but they couldn't distribute it very well. So 10 countries in August 21, 10 countries were concentrated 75% of the doses applied. Some countries have more doses for 3-4 times their population. And when you see some countries like in the Africa continent, almost every country has almost less than 5% the population covered. We had, for example, UK, which had administered more than a first dose for more than 70% of the population, while Haiti didn't reach even 1%, or Nigeria, one of the, and Egypt, like huge countries in the African continent, had covered like less than 5%. So we cannot dissociate this with the ability to produce vaccines. The ability to produce and to innovate is really related to the ability to provide health to the population. So this means the asymmetry in productive capacity and purchasing power reflected in a strong asymmetry in access. Here is another work that we have just published in the WHO that shows the evolution of the vaccination in Brazil. And this red, more intense red, is the national production of vaccines. And we can see here, from here, that this line here is Brazil, and this first line here is the high-income countries. Brazil just reached the percent of first dose population with at least one dose of COVID-19 vaccine because we have more than 75% of national production of vaccines here in Brazil. If you have accounted just for the imports of the vaccines, we couldn't have reached that level of vaccination at that moment, which would have been translated in more deaths here. This is another table, which is the location of mRNA vaccine plants. The color isn't good, but here in the blue and red, like facilities that is working, already working, and this is gray, which are not so visible here, but are projects of technological transfer, which means that they are not yet producing vaccines. You can see that mRNA vaccines plants are really concentrated in a few places in the world. So the production capacity in frontier technologies is highly concentrated. Will be ready for the next pandemic? This is the great question. So this is the main challenge that we faced at Fiocruz, and we are facing with Fiocruz, discussing with a lot of colleagues of here from Unicamp, from other universities here in Brazil, how to create, should be designed the next policy, industrial innovation policies in health. So the main challenge was how to reconcile, how to stimulate the strengthening of the industrial innovation system in health in Brazil, to like reduce this gap, if we could develop the health system, we now have to have a production innovation system capable to sustain it and to promote even further growing of the public health system. So we have been developing a system. We developed there systemic approach for virtuous development that back a new generation of public development policies, a new generation of industrial innovation policies. We could name it with a lot of different ways. The importance is not the name. We can say it is transformative innovation, mission-oriented policy, systemic approach, health, economic, industrial combat. But the main concern is not the name, is what is actually this means. This means I stated committed to global and national challenge. Like we need to put in the center of the problem, the center of the industrial innovation and public policies, what really matters. Repeating what Maria Conceição Tavares always says, people doesn't need GDP. People want to have access to health, they want to have access to food, want to have access to mobility. So put it in the center. So here when we come back to the Ministry of Health, we are introducing these industrial innovation policies that put the universal access in the center of the problem. The problem is how to promote more access to health in Brazil. It is stimulating the sustainability of in production and the servicing provider, stimulating strengthening the production and the innovation systems. And Célio was showing the industrial innovation policy in health in China, and I was looking here in this. We say the mandala, it combines the dimensions that should be contemplated in the industrial innovation policies, and I was thinking that they tick everything. It's the economic policy should be aligned with the needs of the industrial innovation policies. We have to make use of incentives, the funding, the financing. We have to have clear trade policies that favors the development of the national capabilities. We have to have education policies to promote and to the workers. We have to have science, technological innovation policies that back and facilitates this growing the production innovation. We have to work with the regulation, but I left two things for the end. First, we need institutional stability for production and innovation. And we see here in Brazil, we had a coup here in 2015, and after that, all that. If I come back here in the policies, after the coup of 2015, almost a lot of this set of policies and instruments and institutionalities were destroyed after. This one, for example, the GCs, which was a coordination governance body that congregates a lot of different ministries in the Brazilian government to coordinate the industrial innovation policy in health, were dismantled like a few months before the pandemic. So when the pandemic arrived, we didn't have any governance body that could articulate a lot of different ministries to respond, to answer, to try to tackle this problem. So this is a huge problem. We need institutional stability for produce and to innovate, and also this institutional stability to guarantee the investments, long-term investments, because we change the policies every time. This creates uncertainty in the market and difficult the private investment. Everyone knows. And finally, we have to use the stating purchasing power. Now in SUS, one of the biggest is the biggest purchaser in health in Brazil. Just in medicines and inputs, we have the demand of year demand of SUS is almost 30 billions in terms of purchasing power. So this could be used to stimulate the national production and innovation system. So how we are doing that? We are adopting we're adopting a whole of a government approach, uh, trying to not just reproduce the policies that were implemented in the past, but also analyzing it and trying to understand their limits and trying to overcome their limits. Uh, this happened with a lot of discuss with academic, like the project we had in Fiocruz, but also with public debates in the Ministry of Health, how to promote this whole of a government approach. So we developed a stated challenge that was posed by President Lula to promote inclusive and sustainable development. So this in health, what we translated this to the health problems, to build a resilient health economic industrial complex that material basis behind the public health system, to reduce SUS, the public health system vulnerabilities, and increase access to health. This is the main objective of the policy. This reflected in a lot of different initiatives that are being implemented by different ministries and bodies. The main one is the National Strategy for Development of the Health Economic Industrial Complex that it's being implemented in the Ministry of Health, which is also coordinating the other initiatives. But with that, we have the new PAC, the Program of Growth Accelerating, the new Industry Brazil, which is the Ministry of Development, Industry and Commerce. And also we are pushing for a more international multilateral initiatives. In Brazil, we are using our presidency in G20 to push for a global alliance for production and innovation on vaccines and neglected populations to stimulate not just in Brazil, but in other developing countries, the development of these productive and innovation systems. I will talk more about the national strategy for development of the HEIC, which based on that mission, we have established together with the Ministry of Health, when with social participation, we consulted to ask what is the most striking needs for the universal health system in Brazil, and we grouped it in two main challenges. One is the critical disease and conditions for SUS that existed, like is the demands now that are constrained and need to be satisfied, but also how to promote preparedness for health emergencies, including also the climate and environmental emergency. And with that, we established in a consultative process with a lot of different departments of Ministry of Health, established some technological platforms and products to directly solve that. So we're not trying to establish products by itself, but products and technological platforms to solve specific problems in health. Here are some list of them. So in the first block, like preparedness for response to health emergencies, from vaccines, preventable disease, technological alternatives for sustainable development and green chemistry, overcome vulnerability in blood products, bioproducts, modernization of technological services in hemotherapies. So a lot of, I will not state everyone. And the other block, the critical disease and conditions, have disease and neglected populations, cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, rare disease, other chronic non-communicable disease. So we are putting in the center of the policies the biggest problems of the universal health systems, and then calling the public and private actors in the health economic industrial complex to how, departing from this problem, how to stimulate the creation of technological and products to solve that problem. And this reflected in some programs. The PDPs is the Partnerships for Development of Products of SUS, which is technological transfers that are combined with the guarantee of purchasing power of the state. So we can, I will talk a bit more from this later. PDU, which is a project for development and innovation, local development and innovation. And so the others, PPVax, which is promoting the development of vaccines and blood products and serums, a program to neglected populations, a program to develop the infrastructure of the health economic industrial system, and a program to stimulating the modernization of the services providers, articulated with the purchase of the national products of the Brazilian health economic and industrial companies. So this HEIC perspective in action, I will say about the PDP case, which is this program to partnerships for development of products in health. Basically, is articulated the purchase power of the state, the purchase power of SUS, which is more than 30 billions per year. So we direct this, we departing from the demand of SUS and the vaccination program, we articulated with the private sector. We say, oh, we need these products. We want to sell it to the Brazilian public health system. So we'll guarantee the market for the 5 to 10 years. But if you transfer the technology, the productive, and if you transfer the technology for national public institutions like Fiocruz and Butantan. So that they made tech transfer agreements, so to stimulate the creation of capabilities in the national public institutions. And these national public institutions actually provide the products for the national public health system. How this works? This work because when we offer the public market, it's like when we can like jump for 1 million doses to Brazilian populations is to 200 million. We can like jump from a demand for 1 million units for like 50 million units. So the increase in the scale is so high that the private companies are set to transfer the technology with reduction in prices. This is important. With reduction in prices, we combine the transfer of technology with the reducing of the prices of medicines and drugs. And one example of this transfer, tech transfer instruments for preparedness, the tech transfer of alpha poietin and interferon alpha in the 20s from a Cuban laboratory, BioCuba Pharma, allowed the incorporation of the biopharmaceutical platforms in Fiocruz. This technological platform was the basis used to produce the vaccine of COVID-19 transferred by Oxford AstraZeneca. So because we had this tech transfer, we have internalized this technological platform and could easily incorporate the production, the production capabilities to produce the COVID-19 vaccine. And also, this platform will be used now to internalize the mRNA technologies and cell therapies in a new tech transfer to Fiocruz. So this is not just about to provide the product, the final product, but to create develop the internal capabilities, the production innovation capabilities that allows us to keep catching up. This systemic perspective in action actually will happen. How it will happen? Basically, PDP and PDU, PDP and PDIL are the main programs because they are the tech transfer programs, and the other is the using of the state purchase power to simulation local innovation process, local innovation development process in Brazil. Because until now, we have a program that you could buy, the state could buy the products that were transferred from international companies to Brazilian laboratories, but we couldn't guarantee the purchase of the local, the innovations that were produced here in Brazil. So we created a different program to incorporate to allow the purchase of the innovation that were developed here. And this based on the challenge, technological and productive challenge. And this here is like in the base is the programs that are simulating the creation of infrastructure. Is the PEC by the Casa Civil, the main, let's say, and the PDCs, which is the within the Ministry of Health, to finance the modernization of the infrastructure. Going to just finishing the presentation, we have this map, which is like an infographic to summarize everything. That the systemic approach for the virtuous development is a state committed with global national talent challenges. That pursuing health and stimulating the health combined to directed to satisfy the needs of the public health systems can provide sustainable development, can reduce our vulnerability of our universal health system by guarantee the supply, especially in terms of health emergencies. We can push for regional and territorial development because a lot of these new infrastructures are creating this not just in the southeast of Brazil, but also in the other regions to promote, like to decentralize the production capability, the production infrastructure. These colors weren't good, but I promise that I'm finishing. Just to we are this can be a way to reindustrialize Brazil and producing good jobs, and also is a key area of the strategic of the revolution, the fourth revolution, and can also help the ecological transformation. And finally, I think we can use this model to not become isolated in the health, but also to move this experience for other different types of policies. Like we have this policy to access to health, but we have to do it for ecological transition, to education, mobility, housing, feeding. Is the materialization of social rights in major national regional challenges creates structural sources of demand for the productive sector. Social rights can and should be seen as a part of the solution. Generation income, employment, investment, innovation, and revenue. So this is development, is attending, is satisfying the human needs and our biggest problems. Thank you.